Welcome everyone to District 38 Voice Fusion session this afternoon on Moments of Truth with our wonderful facilitator, Jeanette McVeigh. Let me give you a little bit of background about Jeanette, that she is a distinguished Toastmaster, a dedicated mom, wife, and definitely I know for sure she is a dedicated fisherman and a full-time learning management system administrator and training manager at GS1. She has been an active Toastmaster for over 12 years, serving in every club officer role and several district roles, including area director. As a matter of fact, this year she is serving in that role for the third time. She is a past Division F director and twice our public relations manager for the district. Jeanette was named District's 38 Toastmaster of the Year for the 2016-2017 year, and her support of district conferences has ranged from co-chairing to registration, logistics, and even serving food. Those in District 38 know what I am talking about. While her achievements and roles in Toastmasters are extensive, Jeanette is most proud of the skills and insights she's gained that have enriched her contributions outside of Toastmasters, particularly in her service on multiple boards over the past 8 years, serving her local community, as well as being a go-to resource at her job for speaking and leadership. Oh, and of course, she does value the friendships she has made along the way. Please help me welcome the distinguished Toastmaster and my friend, Jeanette McVeigh.
It's my pleasure to be asked to give a presentation for our voice fusion sessions. This is about the moments of truth. For those of you that might have experienced the moment of truth before, it's not necessarily a vibrant topic. It can be a little boring. Some people think of it that way. I will do my best to add some fun and some laughter throughout as much as I can. For those of you that I have not met yet, welcome. For those of you that have met me, thank you for coming back. It's really nice to see you all. Anne has shared in the chat a document that I put together. It's nothing different information-wise that Toastmasters provides for the Moments of Truth, but it's a form we've used at our clubs to solicit feedback from our members, which is what this is all about. Excuse me. I thought I was fine with all the liquids I drank, and then, of course, you start talking, and then that's it. It goes away. The moments of truth, as defined by Merriam-Webster, are quite ominous and not quite the same thing that we think of. Merriam-Webster says it's a final thrust in a bullfight, or a moment of crisis who's overcome much or everything. It's sort of very dire. But the moment of truth for Toastmasters is something a lot simpler. It's basically that first impression, or an episode when a person has a first exposure to Toastmasters. And more times than not, the first exposure that somebody has to Toastmasters, real exposure, is when they come to visit a club. And that's what we're going to talk about, is how that first impression might not be exactly what it should be, and how we could potentially change that. We've all been in situations where maybe our first impression wasn't our best impression, and sometimes that first impression isn't so great, as shown in a couple of these pictures on the screen. But it's something to really think about, how your club is not only giving off its first impression to a potential guest or future member, as I like to call everybody that walks through the door, but it's what you can do as not even a member or an officer as a club. There's so many different components that we can take a look at and do what I refer to as a club quality audit or a system audit. I'm in the technology field, so we look at it as a system audit, but this is a club audit where you look inside and you try and figure out what your club isn't doing well and what it is doing well, and then make a plan and make some changes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And why is this important? Well, it's essential to share this with our club members because it helps them feel like they're a part of it. A lot of times moments of truth are done by an officer or a visiting dignitary. They'll come and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to visit your club as your area director. Do you want me to do the moments of truth? And that's great if you have somebody that will at least talk about the moments of truth at your club, even if they're a member or not. but it's really important to understand what it's all about and why these things are there, and then act upon it. We're going to talk about those things as well. And I'm looking for some interaction. I like to be informally formal. I say that often when I present. I'm not just going to sit here the whole time, hopefully, and just yammer on for an hour. I mean, I don't even want to hear my own voice for an hour. So I hope I can get some feedback from some of you as well, and we'll have an open dialogue. But when you talk about the moment of truth and sharing this with your club, you want to do that for a few different reasons. You can share this with the club to clearly outline the standards and expectations that you have of your members and your officers and what you want your club to do. Every club's going to work a little bit differently. And some clubs, sometimes a corporate club, has very different objectives than a community club for a variety of reasons and in a variety of different ways. But it's really good to share this with your members because you set those expectations. And it allows them to take some ownership. When you have skin in the game, as they say, I'm a little bit of a sports fan, especially since my kids play sports. When you have some skin in the game, you're going to be involved and you're going to want to know what you can do to help. So empowering your members by letting them be a part of this is a really great way to help build your club and focus on areas of improvement. You always want to talk about the experience the member has too. So you want to enhance that experience. So how is your club designed to support their personal and professional growth? Them being aware of how this all works and recognizing that and having a welcome atmosphere as people are visiting your club or continuing to come back over and over. They become members, and why do they keep coming back? Understanding that member experience and making sure you're making it the best it can be is also very valuable. Sorry, I have a little froggy in my throat. And you want to share the moments of truth because it allows a club to engage in a regular self-assessment. I think a lot of times you hear district leadership say, have you done the moment of truth? You might hear your division director show up to your club or your area director saying, when's the last time you did the moment of truth? It's really important on a regular basis to take a look at your club and figure out what's working well and what can be improved on. And if you do this on a regular basis, you'll create a culture of continuous development. Again, not just for officers, this can be for any member of your club. And this would hopefully lead to member retention and satisfaction. When members feel heard and seen, they're going to want to come back. And if the club is serving their needs, their professional or personal needs, whatever that might be, then they're going to feel that being a member of that club is an asset and continue. And we know with the struggles of COVID and everybody coming back to meeting in person or virtual, whatever situation you might be in, the struggle is to maintain your membership and to bring new members in. It all starts with us at the club level, making sure that we're doing what our members need. Again, whether you're an officer or not, it's something that we can all be a part of. And of course, you want to strengthen the club unity. If everybody feels like they're involved in the success of the club or the areas of improvement for the club, you're going to build a sense of unity. And we're going to talk about a lot of these things as we talk about the 6 components of the moment of truth, and that's in the next couple of slides. But you want to do all this so you can attract new members. When you post a picture on social media, or you have a meetup page, or people just talk about what a great meeting you had at work, or how much fun you had at some social event, that's a potential way to attract new members. And that's something that's really important. Because while I might love being in the club with Ann Golden, I don't want it to just be the Ann and Jeanette show and we're the only ones doing speeches. That, no offense to either one of us, but that can be very boring. New members is what keeps us all interested in learning new things and meeting new people. Now, in summary, when clubs and their members understand and embrace this moments of truth thing, I think it will help create a really good foundation for a thriving club environment where everybody feels welcome, supported, and motivated to grow. I mean, there's not one of us in this room, well, the virtual room, I should say, that joined Toastmasters to become a better Toastmaster. Not one of us had that thought in mind. We joined Toastmasters for a variety of reasons, but I would put some money down, maybe not $1 million, maybe like $100. And not one person joined Toastmaster because they wanted to be a better Toastmaster. They wanted to learn how to speak more effectively, become a stronger leader. Maybe their boss told them to join. But nobody said, I want to just be a better Toastmaster. So we need to figure out what it is that our members need so we can deliver. And that takes us to the moments of truth. The moments of truth are broken up into 6, components or groupings of things to take a look at. If you have the handout and you're looking at it, you'll see those 6 things grouped. It's over here to my left. So if I look to my left, I'm referring to that. It's just habit for me. But up on the screen, you'll see them. And they don't just go left to right. You'll notice the arrows go both ways. So there's not one thing here that's more important than another. They're all very critical areas to take a look at when you're looking at doing an audit of your club. Okay, does anybody have any questions? By the way, feel free to throw it in the chat and we'll monitor it. I'll see it potentially as well. You can raise your hand. You can open up your mic. Again, formally informal, open for discussion. I'll do my best as the facilitator to make sure that we stay on track as much as possible. So let's take a look at these 6 components and look at your first impressions, new member orientation, oh my goodness, fellowship, variety, and communication, meeting organization, membership strength, and recognizing accomplishments. All those things, if done really well, should have produced a thriving club environment. And hopefully then your members will stay and your guests will transfer over to being members. Okay, let's take a look at the first one. When someone walks into your meeting room or logs on to your meeting, whether you're virtual or in person, what is their experience? So put yourself in the very first time you went to a club meeting. How did you feel? When you walked in the room, did somebody greet you? Or did you walk in and everybody is off in their little corners having discussions and ignoring you and you didn't know what to do? Was there a table where you could find information, a guest book, name tags? Was the meeting location convenient? All these things are really important to think about. And while some of them you can handle better than others, they're always something to think about. You might not have a choice as to where you meet. Maybe you're a corporate club and that's where you either meet online or there's one room you can do. But is it convenient? Do you have enough signage out? When you're taking a look and asking your members about these things, some of them are like, yeah, I know how to get here. I've been coming here for years. But always put yourself in this first impressions bucket, at least in the shoes of a guest coming to your club for the very first time. Were you greeted warmly? Were you invited to talk at the meeting? Now, I know at the clubs that I'm involved in, any guests, we usually ask why they're here and have them say their name, whether it's virtual or in person. We want to make sure that they're drawn in, and we do our best to say hello at least. If they come in late, there's not much we can do, but if they come in early enough where we can shake hands and talk to them, we also make sure they sit next to somebody that knows what's going on, so they have a question they can easily lean in and ask. So these are things to think about. And who's responsible for all of these things? Every single one of us is responsible for all these things. There are times when maybe the VP membership of your club is the one that's responsible for shaking hands when a guest walks through the door. But what if they're already doing that? What if you have a second or third guest show up and the VP membership is busy? We can't just let the other 2 or 3 people walk in and wander around, and somebody else should sort of be the backup. And we should all be paying attention to who walks through the door. While it might be one officer's role that night, or maybe you even assign a member who's in attendance as that role, that could change every meeting. That's really up to your club and how you want to manage that. Everybody's responsible for making sure that this first impression is a really good one. Does anybody have any questions or comments or any particular struggles with this topic that they'd like to discuss? No? Okay. There are clubs I know that are still meeting virtually for lack of having a place to meet. My corporate club, we're hybrid because we are truly international. My organization is, so we have people that join us from all over the world. But there will be times that you might need to take a look at opening up a different way to have a meeting. If you're meeting just in person, let's say, but you're not getting enough people, maybe think about trying a virtual meeting once in a while. Now, of course, virtual meetings allow people to join from all over the world, and they might not be able to join your club if you're only doing that once in a while versus making it a habit. But things to think about or would be ways to address any potential issues. If you don't have a guest book, just get a piece of paper and ask them to write down their name. It doesn't have to be an official Toastmasters guest book. Is your room clean and neat? That is something you can manage. If it's not clean and there's stuff on the floor, we'll pick it up or sweep it. Those things really matter. When they're coming into a Toastmasters club, you want to be as professional as possible. And a non-clean room wouldn't be the best impression. Some of those things to think about. All right, membership orientation. Well, right here it has the word guest as the first thing because my assumption is that all guests will become members. I have to think positively or we're not doing our jobs right. When somebody walks in, I don't say when you join. I don't say if you join. I say when you join. Sometimes those little words can make a difference. But is your guest, are your guests being formally inducted into the meeting or into the club? Do they get a presentation of a pin? Do you give them a certificate? What do you do when guests become members? So you've transferred them over, they've drank the juice, so to speak. They want to be a Toastmaster and join your club. Whether they only ever came to your club and now they've joined, or they were shopped around and found your club, whatever the reason, they're there. And what do you do to make it a big deal that they're now a member of your club? Does the VP education get on them and get them a mentor right away? Every club's going to be a little bit different. And sometimes I've had guests sit next to me then ask me just because I was sitting next to them if I could be their mentor. And that sometimes works out very organically and they get somebody that just takes them under their wing. But it is really important to make sure that that new member isn't just flailing around trying to figure things out, that somebody's working with them. That could be the VP education, VP membership. Every club runs things a little different, but it's really important that a mentor is assigned to a new member. Do you discuss with a new member about pathways and how it works? Is there an orientation? Do you send them links to go watch videos? Are you following up with them? A lot of people are very busy, right? All of us are very busy typically. And unless we're hand-fed things, sometimes we don't take the energy to find it ourselves. And everybody's a little different here, I get that. But it's important that you provide information to your new members so they know what Pathways is. They know how to log into the toastmasters.org. And if you have a club website, do they know how to log in there? And where should they go for resources? Is it District 38 or is your district? I know not everybody here is from 38. Are you sending them to your district website there for certain information? It is a lot of information. I don't think you want to just give them everything all in one email because it will get lost. But you can even come up with a plan for, I'm going to give them a little bit of this information today, and then in a week, I'm going to follow up with this information. Every club runs things a little different. And some people do I could take I like information. I want it all. I want to save it all somewhere and refer to it. But after a while, you'll learn about your new members and decide what it is and how you want to feed them that information. But it's all really important. I know Anne is the VP Education for Lower Bucks Toastmasters with me, and Anne is on top of that stuff. If you know Anne, you're probably not surprised. As president of that club, I don't worry that much. I know that Anne's reaching out to our new members and taking care of it, and in our executive meetings, we talk about that. Our VP membership and our VP PR, they're also doing their jobs, but in our executive meetings, we get status updates. It's also important if any of you are officers in your clubs to make sure that these things are being followed. And even if you're not an officer, you might want to help out. Talk to your officers and say, hey, can I help out with the new member orientation? I'm glad I know a lot about Pathways. I'm glad to make a phone call and work with somebody. All these things help retain those newly transformed guests into members and keep them around, making sure that they feel welcome, because it's really what it's all about. And sometimes clubs have activities. We've been doing a lot more social things in the last year or two. For our clubs, I think it's because we were so locked down for so many years. Everybody's so happy to be able to do things. We were doing paint and sips, and we just had our holiday party, and we go out after our meetings. Those social things can also help form nice bonds in the club, which just strengthen everybody because they feel welcomed and they feel included. So those are things to think about as well. So we've got membership orientation. How is your club managing that? And in the form that Anne provided in the chat, you're going to ask, if you want to, you can use this form and share it. You can share it with the world. There's nothing really crazy uniquely that I did here, but it worked for me. You want to ask your members how they feel about these things, because my perception is, wow, we do great at member orientation. But what about that member that joined a month ago? I wonder, do they really feel that we're doing such a great job? because that's really important, is to find out the potential points of failure. Where in what we think we're doing well are things missing? And that's what you can get if you get somebody that's a new member, like maybe a month or two in, after a few meetings, ask them to audit us, because that's a fresh new set of eyes. When you've been with a club for a while, you think it's running great. Your membership numbers are stable. Everybody keeps coming back to the meetings, but there's always room for improvement. And I think you can use this form, or just having conversations if you don't want to make it formal, to get that information. Any questions or comments about membership orientation? Again, not a very vibrant topic, but we'll do our best to keep moving through and hopefully not let you guys fall asleep. No guarantees. Fellowship, variety, and
Scott
communication.
raised her hand, Jeanette.
Oh,
Excuse me,
sorry,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Renee
Please,
Scott,
no.
she raised her hand.
Please do.
Yeah. Hi, thank you. And hi, Jeanette. Nice to see you again. I saw you on Saturday. We didn't get a chance to speak. I hope you're feeling better or will feel better. I just had a comment. I liked what you were saying about your club getting together. You know, you just had your holiday party and you try to have some of those social events. And I agree, you know, being, you know, on the COVID lockdowns, it's kind of kept people somewhat away from each other. But do you have any suggestions on um, how to make a more hybrid club a bit more social? I mean, unfortunately, you know, I'm part of a corporate club also. And a lot of our members, most of our members dial into meetings. Many of them are not even in the area to attend anything if it was done in person. So I'm just wondering if you had any experience, as much experience as any of us can have, or any ideas of how we could incorporate that in, you know, a virtual, typically virtual type situation.
That definitely lends to an interesting dilemma, because you've got people, either everybody's in a box, or you might have a few people in one room and then everybody else logged in. I'm not sure your exact scenario. And I can personally pull on my corporate club and just my corporate world, because we are truly international, and I'm based in New Jersey. Our other office is in Brussels. And what we did a lot during COVID, very lucky with the organization I work at, but they organized paint and sips that were virtual. So the instructor logged in and they were in a box, and we all got our own supplies, and then we just followed along. So while you weren't in person, you were all still doing the same activity. Now, of course, there's a cost involved with that, the paint and the supplies, but there
Right.
are free YouTube videos out there if you have people interested that you can just play without an actual person. But you might even just have, we also do these get to know you meetings. They're 20 minutes. I think every 3 months, all the new employees will come and they're asked to just be there and chat about something about their life. And if they want to do a couple minutes conversation or talk about a trip they went on, but it just gets people totally social. We don't talk work. We don't talk about what we're working on. We just all log in and chat. And that just, you get to know more about your members, especially if they're virtual and if you never met them in person, which I don't know with your club if that's the case, but everybody in my organization I've met now since I've been there for a couple of decades. So I'm lucky that way, but I could see a new employee shows up, and we're so all over the world, our
Yeah.
organization, that those things really help us connect. I don't know if that's something that you could potentially run with. Just, I think we
Yeah, no, it
coffee
just
time, I think we called it coffee time.
yeah. No, they gave me yeah, a couple of ideas popped up. I mean, because the thing is, our meetings are held during the workday.
Mhm.
So, you know, but I think like a 20-minute connect of not discussing work.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe throwing a topic out there and just kind of letting people speak to it,
Yeah.
to get to know each other might be a great idea. We did have an open house. I think it was, I don't know, but maybe toward the end of the summer or during the summer, we had an open house, and so some of our members were able to be on site for that. So that was nice. But like our club president is out west somewhere.
Oh,
And so, yeah, I don't assume that I'll ever meet him in person. I mean, unless he, you know, happens to come to New Jersey for some business reason. But so yeah, but thank you for that.
of
That did
course.
raise some ideas in my head as you were speaking. Thank you.
Absolutely. If anybody has any other ideas and they don't want to talk right now, they can throw them in the chat, or chat to Renee or the whole group. Feel free to do that. Renee, which club are you with again?
I'm J&J Titusville.
That's what I thought. I knew
Yeah.
the name sounds very familiar, but I wasn't seeing your face right now, so
Yeah.
I wasn't clicking, so I apologize.
No,
Okay.
that's okay. No problem. Thank you.
Great. All right, and now the next thing, now you continue. Come on, mouse, there we go. All right, so the next thing I wanted to do, there you go. Now I recognize you, totally recognize your name. Fellowship, variety, and communication. So are your meetings fun? I'm constantly saying if you're having fun, you're more open to learning and you're just more open to new experiences. But if you're not having fun, you're sort of, your demeanor changes and you just sort of sink in. But when you're having fun, you're laughing, you're engaging. And if your meetings aren't fun, find a way to interject some fun. You can have a joke master if you don't have that at your meeting. Somebody who actually has a job to tell a joke or two at the beginning of the meeting to just liven it up. Just sort of sets the mood. And that usually happens before any speeches happen. 1 to 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. That's really up to you based upon your agenda. Our meeting is 2 hours, so we can do 3 to 5 minute joke master. You want to watch that people don't go on for 20 minutes. It's not a stand-up comedy act, but it does help. Do your members engage in things outside of your club? There's a lot of things outside of the club that you could potentially be a part of. Officers go to officers training. We just had that this Saturday. That's what Renee was referring to. There's contests outside of your club. There's the conferences. There's visiting other clubs, even if it's virtual. There's visiting other clubs in other districts, becoming members of other clubs in other districts. There's a lot of things outside of your club that might give you the variety you need to even bring back some new ideas into your club, which is a lot of fun. I just attended it was LWD Toastmasters and Voorhees Toastmasters had I forget what they called it, but interclub is what I'm thinking of. They had a joint meeting. So the members from both clubs went and had the meeting and they all took roles. And that was fun because they got to hear other people speak and meet other people and see how other clubs run. Now, the last one on this list about a newsletter or your website updated regularly, that's going to depend upon, we don't do a newsletter. I don't know if anybody here does a newsletter. But we do try and keep our website updated regularly. We use Free Toast Host for Lower Bucks Toastmasters and Washington's Crossing, a member of both of those clubs. And we use Free Toast Host, so we do try to keep that information up to date. We also have Facebook and other social media avenues as well to try and entice people to come check out what Toastmasters can do for them. Keeping that information up to date can help show that there's more than just coming and giving speeches at your club. I have a member of Lower Bucks Toastmasters who has taken his performance side of him and has been doing local theater. He was in the Newtown, Pennsylvania production of White Christmas this past weekend. So he took his Toastmasters stuff and his love for just being front and center, I guess I'll say, and he was on stage and even co-produced it. So there's a lot of different things. And Ann and I actually went to that event and we watched him, and it was really cool to see somebody who has grown and now take that outside. Now, I'm hoping he comes back and talks about it. And that's something totally different. So I said to him, Kevin, you need to come back, come to a meeting and tell us about that experience. There's a lot of speeches right there to give through the people he's met and how to even produce live theater. And that's something to think about as well. There's things like reverse meetings, when you start backwards and the evaluator evaluates a speaker before they even speak, and then the speaker has to do whatever the evaluator said they did. That's challenging, but can be a lot of fun. You can have themed meetings maybe on holidays or 4th of July or some other theme that somebody, not every theme is workable into every speech or everything that you do, but a themed meeting can really help your club have fun. Anybody want to share anything fun that they do at their meetings that another club might be able to leverage?
Yes, I'd just like to add on to what you said, whereby you have a joke master. So for us, we have a joke master or a joke and a toast. So a member can volunteer or choose that role. So it is on the agenda. And most guests who have come and become our members have said that the club feels very, very approachable. People feel approachable. People feel like they're just amongst peers. And this endears them to come back and join the club.
Yeah, it really can. It really
Because
can
the
help.
toast also, with the toast, you can maybe commemorates a singer. If maybe you like singing and maybe one of your favorite musicians has just passed on, you can take the opportunity maybe just to share your love for this person and their legacy.
That's a nice thing to do. That is a nice thing to do. It shows the human side to all of us, which I think is something that I'm not saying people forget. Sometimes people just get so into, we have Toastmasters and we have speeches and we have evaluations that we forget to, well, we're human too. And we all have lives outside of Toastmasters, and being able to share that is also really important. Did somebody have their hand raised? My screen got blocked, but I thought I saw a hand raised, but maybe not.
Yes,
Ah,
Jeanette.
Phyllis,
Yes,
there
this
you
is
go.
Phyllis. Yes, for our meeting, we have either a joke of the day or a thought of the day, so the person
Mhm.
can choose either one of those.
Great. One thing that we do in our club too, we call it Listen Up. So Nikki just put question of the day. So everybody that goes up, I guess, is asked a question, or they pull people up with a question of the day. I don't know exactly, but that'd be my guess from what Nikki said, which sort of lends into what we do at Listen Up. It's a role people can sign up for. And the idea is they're listening throughout the entire meeting and they're coming up with questions. And at the end of the meeting, they ask everybody the questions. And it could simply be like, if I gave a speech about my family, they might say, what's Jeanette's daughter's name? So they're not saying what's the title of my speech is on the agenda. They're really paying attention if you were paying attention. And it turned out to usually be a lot of fun. And we give out candy. So people are very interested. And now the people that know about it, they're paying attention throughout the meeting. And then you have to raise your hand, answer it right, and then you get a piece of candy. So it turns to be a lot of fun, a great way to sort of wrap up the meeting. We wrap up with an official closure of the meeting, but that's the last thing we do, which is a lot of fun. It's not easy either. It's a hard job to have questions that are thoughtful and intriguing, but can be a lot of fun. Okay. All right, seeing no other hands raised, I will move on if I can get my mouse to work. I was telling Anne, my monitors got all screwed up, and I have multiple monitors, and they used to go left to right, and now they're not. So I keep moving my mouse the wrong way. Sorry about that. All right, program planning and meeting organization. So, well, oh, does Joyce have her hand raised? I saw her square move. Joyce, please go ahead.
Sort of along the line at the beginning of the meeting, if the grammarian has a word of the day, that's another way of engaging everybody to try to incorporate the word of the day and have people listening and acknowledge when somebody does that.
A good point. Thank you. Okay. I guess this goes along with program planning and meeting organization. Now, a lot of this stuff here is a little bit, it's about advertising, and is the meeting running on time? Are table topics fun? You don't want them to be too difficult or too easy, especially if you have a guest that volunteers to do a table topics. You don't want to scare them off with some, the Constitution and blah, 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 blah. And what do you think about line 13? Well, I don't even know there is line 13, right? You have to be generic enough that it's engaging and they have an opportunity to answer. But you want to have your meetings be planned, right, on a regular cadence. Now, around the holidays, I know Lower Bucks, and I'm sorry I keep talking about, but that's my experience, so that's what I'll talk about, right? We meet on the second and fourth Thursday. So what happens every November on the fourth Thursday? We don't meet because it's Thanksgiving. So we try and make or do something else, and we hold a different meeting. And then same thing in December. The fourth Thursday usually falls somewhere around the time where we're all way too busy for whatever reasons, right? Work, holidays. Oh, that's why we had our holiday party last week. So we're able to still keep people engaged, but you have to advertise that and you have to let people know about it. And you have to, so whether you do it via emails right from your website or through regular emails from an officer, you want to make sure that people know what's happening well in advance. And a lot of this stuff to me falls on VP education, because we're talking about making sure the members are prepared. And the VP education is the person who works on getting the agenda filled and making sure that if it's a new person and they signed up to be the Toastmaster, that they understand how that job is done. Now, while that's the responsibility of VP education, that doesn't mean we all can't help. The VP education to me has one of the hardest and most time intrusive, I think will be the words I'll use, role in the club if the meeting is going to run successfully. If you have a VP education that's not doing the job, you still have a meeting. It just might be a little haphazard. With a strong VP education, a strong leadership team, your meetings are planned well. Your members know what they're supposed to do. You've got people giving speeches that aren't the same people all the time. And that's something to definitely take a look at and make sure that you're doing. And making sure your meetings begin and end on time. This might seem like a silly thing to think about, but we're all busy. And if your meeting is supposed to be from 7 to 9 p.m. on a Thursday night, you best wrap up at 9 p.m. People have to go to work the next day, or some of us that want to go out after the meeting want to go out right after the meeting and not at 9:30 or 10 o'clock. But starting and ending on time, very important components. And your evaluations. If you have positive and helpful evaluations for your speakers, not only is that speaker learning, the evaluators are learning how to give that helpful feedback, and everybody else in attendance is learning as well. If your evaluators are just getting to say, Jeanette, that was a great speech. I love hearing your speech. I can't wait for your next speech. That did absolutely nothing for anybody in the room. The person evaluating hasn't really learned to listen and formulate their opinion well. I haven't learned, if I was a speaker in that case, there's always room for improvement, always. Oh, I don't care if you're the best speaker, you can bring Aaron Beverly here, you can bring Jocelyn here. There's always room for improvement every time somebody speaks. Matter of fact, if any one of you want to provide me some feedback on what I can do better with this session next time, I'm always open to hearing that. But your evaluators need to be able to do that without making people cry. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. You don't want to embarrass people, but you want to provide that helpful feedback. Like, Jeanette, I think your slides had a little too much text on them. Maybe just use pictures next time. No, I might not use that feedback, but it will make me think about maybe how I should restructure my slides. Now, these words are exactly the words that are in Moments of Truth, so I didn't necessarily create these, but maybe there's a way that I can make these slides better so they're not so intrusive and you're focusing more on what I'm saying versus reading the slides. That's sort of the feedback that people can, it's actionable. It's something I can do for the next time. Now, making sure that happens is also really important when you think about how your club is serving its members. Any questions or comments about that? Any struggles that you have? I think one struggle I'm probably going to hear if someone would say is they have a hard time getting speakers. I think it's a common problem. But you can maybe reach out to other Toastmasters throughout the district and see if they'll come and give a speech. Renee, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I know I had to mention actually a couple of times in my club when people are giving speeches and the grammarian is doing their report, that they would actually count, or I'm sorry, not the grammarian, the odd counter is providing their report, that they would give the exact number of ahs or ums that they heard. And, you know, I think it's outlined where, you know, okay, if somebody says it once or twice, you might be able to mention that they said it once or twice, but you don't need to tell somebody that they said 20 times, that they used the word like 50 times, because again, it's not about, you know, making someone feel bad or embarrassing them. You're just bringing it to their attention. And it's something that's very common. I mean, we do it sort of anyway, but it's just to be aware of doing it and not calling somebody out because they said like or 50 times.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we're not into embarrassing people. They're not going to want to come back if they're still working on whatever it is you're reporting on, basically, and they're not, you know, the next meeting doesn't mean also they're going to stop saying on just because you told them they said it 50 times. They might say it 40 times, and that's a huge improvement, right? They decreased it by 20%. That's awesome, right? But you're not going to remember that necessarily. We're not keeping tabs on a board. It's a really good say. You might say something like, well, your crutch word is so. Instead of saying so, just pause. And so instead of saying you said it 50 times, tell them how to correct it, right? And that's the learning part. And that's not always easy to do. Sometimes it's not as obvious as to how you can fix it. And a newer member is just going to be nervous. To me, I think I've said this before for people that have been around, the counter, I count ahs and ums when anybody speaks to me now. It's the curse of Toastmasters. It's just a thing, right? And it's not bad to stumble. I do it a couple times even today when you start talking more ad lib. Saying and isn't horrible, but in something you're preparing that you should have taken time and practiced, that's when you're like, did you really practice? If you're saying on so much, and people might start to doubt your authenticity and your knowledge of the topic if you do that too often. And that's what we're trying to help people, make people feel like make the audience feel like this person speaking to me knows what they're talking about. They practice, they've researched, they understand. So you're absolutely right. Not making people cry is definitely a goal. And maybe that we should just put that right on the audit. Do you make people cry? Yes, no, rarely, often. Like that's a big indicator of how well or well not your club might be managing that. Okay. And I think is it the last one? No, not quite the last one. We are on membership strength. Oh, my mouse is gonna, there we go. Membership strength. Now, there are reasons why these numbers are where they are. The club has 20 or more members. If you think about a traditional club meeting, you need, I think, 13 members to run a club that have speakers and have everybody only have one role in the meeting. So Toastmasters, and the math of it all, their math says 20 or more members is a strong club. Because then, so not every member makes every meeting. You're hopefully going to have 13 to 15 people of the 20 show up to run a successful meeting. Are your members staying around? Are they retained? There's even ways to strengthen your club by promoting it in your organization or your community. My club meets at the senior center, and we haven't had really anybody from the senior center join our club because we meet there, but there's a sign hanging up and it's there. So if anybody's ever curious and they want to come, so there's ways to promote your club in your organization community that are just hanging banners, flyers up in Panera Bread or in your local supermarket. Sometimes you can go to like patch.com or even Craigslist. There's free ways to promote it to help build your membership strength as well. If you bring somebody to the club and they're your guest and then you join, then you're considered a sponsor of that member. And we should recognize that when it happens. And I don't know that we really do that often at our club. It happens. I know people bring people and they join, but I don't know that. I think that's a place where we can do better, is to make sure we recognize that and make it a big deal. Anne brought Jeanette, and Jeanette just joined. Thank you, Anne, right? That sort of thing. There's an opportunity to definitely recognize people that help grow your club. And the regular membership building program. So this could be a speechcraft. And I know somebody in one of these squares that knows a little bit about speechcraft. You can reach out to Ann Golden at any time. That's a way to basically show the world what Toastmasters can do for them. And that's called speechcraft. But different membership building open houses. Have an incentive maybe for everybody who brings a guest. You keep track of it over 6 months, and whoever brings the most guests in, whether they join or not, you can just say bring guests. Maybe somebody buys them a beer or something, or they get a ribbon. Maybe you have an extra Toastmasters ribbon. People like acknowledgement. It can be a simple printed piece of paper that says thank you. And that can be enough, but making sure you acknowledge those things and help build membership. Those are really important things to think about. And membership strength, it's just one of the metrics that Toastmasters has to measure, because they can't come into every one of the over 14,000 clubs around the world. This is one of those metrics that Toastmasters uses to measure the strength of the club. You either have 20 members or a net growth of, is it back to 5 or is it 3 this year? I can't remember. But every club starts with a base number with the Distinguished Club Program. And that's a whole other topic that can be spoken about some other time. If you're not familiar with it, you can ask and we'll do our best to explain it. But the growth in membership, or at least 20, is one of the things that disqualify you to even be considered a distinguished club. So it's really important to make sure your membership is maintained. Any questions or comments about that? This is going to also be a very hard one too to do, but okay. Let's see. Oh, good. Now I can use and achievement recognition. This to me is the funnest, I think that's a word, part of a Toastmasters meeting. I'm the president this year, so I'm the one that gets to say, hey, congratulations, and thank goodness for Anne as my VP Education. She reminds me somebody finished a level, or this is their 3rd speech, or whatever it might be that we want to acknowledge, we acknowledge. And it's really important to not only acknowledge them in the club, but to make sure things are processed with Toastmasters. Now, with the new pathways, that's a little bit easier. For anybody who's been an officer of VP Education or submitted education awards in the past, it was a 2-step process to get it in the system. You did it in Pathways, it got approved, then you had to go into Club Central. Now it's different. When you go into pathways, as you complete things, it's tied to Club Central. And if for anybody who's a member of more than one club, you actually tell the system which club that gets the credit for them. So that's a little bit different, but you want to make sure any awards are submitted. I guess that one should probably change a little bit, right, Ann? We as officers don't do that, but the member does the award applications now. So we'll have to figure that out. Some clubs do progress charts, and just started to create a progress chart that we can display in the club. And it's not to embarrass the people who might not be progressing, but it's to give accolades to those who are progressing. So we don't go, oh, look, Austin hasn't done anything in 3 months. We go, oh, look, Ann did 3 speeches in the last 3 months. So it's always about how you market it or how you spin it. But it's really important to let people know that people are progressing and it can be done. People sometimes feel very daunted, maybe not, they just don't feel great about the online system. They're not comfortable if they're doing it right. They might do speeches, but they have to put the progress in the pathway system or nobody gets recognized. We hear them speak, but there's that other part. And I know in our club, and make sure that people are putting those things in pathways. And that's something also to remember to do at your club. If you have any visitors showing up at your club, especially anybody who holds a district leadership position or an officer position, not only should you recognize anybody who shows up at your club as a guest, just visiting from another Toastmasters club, but any dignitary should always be recognized when you're coming to the club. We had our holiday party. We were very fortunate to have the District 38 Program Quality Director and the Club Growth Director in attendance. We had 4 past district directors, well, truly 1 district governor and 3 district directors present. And I made sure to let people know that they were there and who they were, because not everybody has met them. That's really important to show that there's people that just stick around because this stuff works and they continued to be members for decades. That's really important to show people that people, not just in your club, care about having fun with you, learning about your club and seeing what they can do to help. And the DCPs, the Distinguished Club Program, the officers usually sit around right at the beginning of the year and they work on the club success plan and try and figure out who's going to help them get these points. And why does this matter? Well, that's again, the one metric that Toastmasters International has to show the strength of clubs and areas and divisions and districts. But what's most important here is if you see numbers on that DCP, your members are getting something out of your club. If members are finishing their levels, if officers are going to training, if you're getting new members, if you're submitting your reports on time, all those things that the DCP measures, if your club is getting numbers, now it's not a guarantee that you have a thriving club. You just might have a club with a lot of goal-oriented people that just want to get stuff done. There's no guarantee it's a great club. I totally get that. But when you're dealing with 14,000 plus clubs, it's the one thing that Toastmasters has to sort of measure. You have to use this tool and just having conversations with your membership to figure out what your club is and isn't doing right. So does your club meet these standards? Where do you find opportunities for improvement? This club quality audit or moments of truth is one way that you can make sure you have conversations with your members about how your club is servicing their needs professionally and personally. So what are you going to do? We've talked a lot. I've been chatting for almost 50 minutes now and had some conversations with you. We've talked about the moments of truth and the different facets, the 6 groupings of things that can measure the success of your club. But what are you going to do with it? Well, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to talk to your members. Use this form, send it electronically, print them out if you meet in person, hand them out and ask them to hand them back in. You'll notice if you've opened it, you might not have yet, on the second page on the bottom, there's a line that says name and it has the word optional. So it can be totally anonymous if they want it to be, or they can put their name because maybe that will allow you then to open up the communication with them, especially if they say, you know, no, I'm not, my needs are not being met. Well, if I don't know who you are, I can't help you out with that, right? So that's really up to them. But ask your members, whether you give the moments of truth, something like this, or an abridged version of this, you need to ask them to find out. They need to make a plan. And this typically falls on the officers, but I would suggest that it's the whole club that makes a plan. Get everybody involved. The officers can maybe be the driving force for it all, but make a plan. What are you going to do that's actionable? If the room is marked as being dirty, make sure it gets cleaned up. Your sergeant at arms can be responsible for that. If the VP education has become too busy lately and can't get a mentor, maybe ask somebody else to be the VP of mentors in your club. That's not an official role in Toastmasters, but something to think about. And then work the plan. Don't just make the plan and let it sit there on a piece of paper or electronically on somebody's computer, but you have to work it. Specific, measurable things will help. And then hopefully you'll get results. Now, I did see something pop up in the chat from Anne. All right. Oh, okay. So from what I read real quick here, you have people who love to speak, but not do the work. Is that what I'm hearing? You like people who want to speak, they like to be heard, they want people to hear them. They don't mind getting the feedback necessary, but they're not filling the evaluator role. They're not the counter, they're not the timer. We have that too with a few members. I know I thought of a few names right off the top of my head as soon as I read that. And sometimes it's hard, other than just saying, I'm going to put you as counter next week, Anne. Hope you like that. Just tell them. And then Ann Golden will tell you, she used to be called the enforcer for a reason. Ann Golden would just say to somebody, hey, we haven't seen you be word master in a while. Why don't you do the word of the day next meeting? Maybe not grammarian yet. Maybe they're too new. Maybe they're not comfortable with that. But you can volunteer people. And most people will follow suit. Not all, but most people are like, all right, I'll do it. So maybe try that. But I see veteran, I won't say old, right? Because I'll put me as old. I would say veteran Toastmasters might not want to fill up those roles that they've done maybe a few dozen times, counter, timer. But we need them to do that. It's important to lead by example. If our veteran Toastmasters and our officers aren't signing up for roles in advance, they're not leading by example. And that's maybe the challenge you can give to them is saying, well, you might know how to do the counter role really well, or you don't like to be the timer. We need you to step up and show people how it's done. Yep. Voluntold, yeah. Oh, a wheel of names. There you go. They have online tools for wheels of names too now, right? You can just spin a wheel and say, you're going to be the counter. Bloop. So it's not like you're picking on them. The wheel is. Great idea. Any questions or other comments before I do the questions, because I have one last slide. In the slide deck that Anne will probably send out to everybody, there's a few different handouts that I've used. There's a book, that's the one on the right, the manual. There's this chart, which is basically how I created the form that I have. And then there's a handout which goes into a little deeper and has even some common challenges on it and how you could potentially work those challenges. These are all links. If you click on the image, it will link you to where it is. In the very top, that page, resources/moments of truth on the Toastmaster site has all these things on it too. But use those resources, reach out to people, but ask your members. You can't get anywhere without finding out what your members want from the club and where your club might be lacking, and ask them to help with a solution. Don't just ask them to say what's wrong and let them walk away. How would they solve that? Ask them what they think is the answer. Now, they might not have an answer. They might be so new or they just can't brainstorm enough. That's fine. Then you ask the whole group. But there's some resources for you as well. Now, Valerie, I see you came off camera. Are you about to ask me a question? Came off.
No, I just
Okay.
figured I'd come on camera since you're almost closing, but I put in the chat that what we do with our guests, we will address them and if they're there when we start the meeting, but if they walk in afterwards, then right before we end the meeting, we address them so that they would have a chance to introduce themselves, say what they thought of the meeting, etc.
That's a great idea, because you don't want them to just leave like they spoke in the beginning. Maybe
Right.
they didn't do anything, but bringing them back in, pulling them in and letting them know, hey, we still know you're here. We see you. We usually do two things. We ask them what they liked about the meeting, and then we ask them when they're coming back. Those are two really important things. Don't just say, hi, I hope you had fun. See you later. When? Commit to me now. When are you coming back? That's really important too, to make sure that they know that you care if they come back.
Yes, and we remind them of the next time that we meet, and we welcome them to come back. We welcome them to join.
Yep, and follow-up emails, it's another thing. So
Yes.
after the meeting's over, we have sort of a plan. Our VP membership reaches out. We have an actual guest book that we use. Sorry, she knows all of a sudden. And they might not take the guest book, but they'll take a picture and then they follow up with an email. We're glad you came out. We hope you enjoyed the meeting. Do you have any questions? Here's our next meeting. So those are all really important things. Juma, am I saying that right? Did you have something to say?
Yes, yes. Just wanted to commend you for giving us the reminder to always recognize people who bring in new members, because sometimes we take them for granted. We just see the membership growing, and we know who brought them, but we don't recognize them. So thanks for reminding about recognizing the people who put the effort to bring guests.
Yeah, and remember, when whoever processes the new member at your club, there is a field for who sponsored them. And I think you get a pin or something after 5. And it's been a while since I've sponsored up to 5, but years ago, I had sponsored a 5th member, and then Toastmasters sent me a pin because I sponsored 5 members.
Great.
So when you fill out that form, if you know who that sponsor is, make sure that it's part of that application.
So just a quick one. Is it 5 within one Toastmaster year, or just 5 across?
For me, it was just 5 across. I forget even when I haven't done 5 since, but and I don't even know for sure if they still do that, but we can do it as a club, right? If you know that somebody keeps bringing people in, printing a certificate of thanks is a piece of paper and a little bit of time. And there's even templates out there that you can use. You don't have to recreate the wheel. And sometimes it's even just a little ribbon or a mug or $1. Like, I don't know where everybody is, but we have the Dollar Tree near me. For $1.25, I can get a thing, a tchotchke of some sort that might be like a little trophy and says, thanks, you're a champion for bringing in new members. So there's lots of fun little things you can do.
Yeah, thanks so much. And also thanks for pointing out that Toastmasters has done the math that with 13 members, at least each person is able to do a role or be active.
Yeah. That's the average.
So great aha moments from this session.
Good. I'm done. I can now be done for the day. That's awesome. And thank you for sticking with me. We are almost at the top of the hour, and we'll be sending out a link to the recording, which will go on YouTube. You have this club quality audit. Feel free to use that and share it with whomever you'd like. And there's a lot of other resources out there. So good luck. Moments of truth really can, you don't have, if you call it moments of truth, people get confused. That's why I call it a club quality audit. That's just something I refer to. You just have to take a look inside and figure out what it is that your club is doing really well and what it needs to focus on to do better. Thanks for coming. And back to you, Toastmaster Ann.
Thank you, Jeanette. And before everybody goes, would you come off mute and show Jeanette your appreciation? This was a tough topic to cover, and I think she did a fabulous job.
Yes.
So let's hear it up for Jeanette.